These past 3 years, we went from launching a product to our first sale to over $20 million of sales to then running out of cash and having to shut the doors and go out of business. These past couple months through this wind down process have been some of the most challenging of my life. We would have to tell our investors that we lost their money, some of which were some of my closest friends and even family. We would have to lay off our team, some of our closest friends, and this was really tough. So first, to take a step back, what led to us shutting down? This is for the others out there. The other ambitious people who want to play at a higher level in their life. It's time to get curious and get real. Join me, and together, let's find the others. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Find the Others podcast. I'm Joshua Church, your host here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today, I am very excited to share some real, raw, honest reflections with you here as I am in this transitionary period of my life. I think a lot of you listening to this are probably aware, but Edge Theory Labs, the business that I co-founded with my cousin and have been running for the last 3+ years, has unfortunately gone out of business. Now, these past couple months through this wind down process have been some of the most challenging of my life, and it really has pushed me to the absolute brink and my complete edge. And in this episode, I wanted to dive deeper and share about my journey navigating this challenging period of my life and the different perspective shifts and takeaways. There's 6 particular shifts or takeaways that I want to share with you all today. And these are the things I've been wrestling with and I've been really inquiring about and deepening my practice with in real time, and how I've just been navigating and facing it all. And I'm still processing all of this really in real time. And as I'm recording this, it's actually the last day of the year. It's December 31st. It's Tuesday afternoon. The new year is just a few hours away. And we just yesterday handed the keys over to our Edge Theory Labs HQ, our facility, the labs as we called it, which brought up a lot of emotion. It was certainly bittersweet and sad, to be honest with you, to close the chapter on a chapter that was very, very meaningful and life-giving for me and so many people. But that is life, and life is full of transitions and chapter changes. And I genuinely do feel excited now, looking forward to this next chapter. But there's so much to dive into here. And over the past 4 months, really, I've kept a document on my computer that I've called the Crucible Chronicles. And this has been a place where I've documented the entire process and really the emotional journey of it all and the roller coaster that it's been. I also just yesterday, before Rob and I handed over the keys, we recorded a over 3-hour long podcast together, diving a little bit deeper into some of our business lessons and takeaways. And that will be something we'll share at some point. Not right away, but we'll share that at some point. And in my Crucible Chronicles reflection document, it grew to over 20,000 words. It ended up being a massive document, and I was riding the waves. Some moments I'm like, let's go, bring it on. I'm built for this. Others I'm like, screw this, I'm done. Others I felt paralyzed and depressed and just absolutely at my wit's end. There was many entries and voice notes that I recorded and transcribed and entered into there where I was crying, where I was down in the dumps, and others where I was motivated. It was just a full wave. And I love this quote from Viktor Frankl that really set the frame and inspired me to document through this entire process. And Viktor Frankl, psychologist and Holocaust survivor, he says, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. And I love that, because I knew and I know that in one day I will tell the story. And that was one thing that I kept telling myself over and over again. And one thing that I would talk about with Chad, our director of sales, and my friends, which is we will tell this story. And though there's still so much to process and to learn, I am telling the story. And I'm starting to tell the story today because it puts meaning to the suffering. And I think it also can shine light on, not a lot of people talk about the wind down of a business. Everybody talks about the startup, and the wins and the successes and you see the highlight reels, but you don't really see the failures, or you don't really see the one down period. And so I do feel a sense of responsibility having gone through this to be able to share this and shed some light. To one, I think some of you might find it interesting at the very least. And two, some of you might be able to relate this into own challenges that you're facing in your own life. And these lessons and takeaways are applicable to everything. So this is my my journey with it. My goal, again, as I said here, is to be transparent and messy and rough around the edges with it, with you all throughout this process. Because again, if it can help one person just one bit, I feel a responsibility to do so. So here we go. To set the stage, I think you need to take a step back for context, right? So these past 3 years have been an absolute whirlwind. And these past 3 years, we went from having an idea to a prototype of a product, to launching a product, to our first sale, to over $20 million of sales, to then running out of cash and having to shut the doors and go out of business. So we saw it all. I mean, a rapid takeoff, proof of concept, working with some of the greatest athletes and celebrities and influencers in the world, fundraising over $1 million, launching new products, and hiring a team of up to 15 people we had at one point, and then making rounds of budget cuts and layoffs and laying off that team eventually, and pursuing merger and acquisition, shutting down the business. Personally, I was named to Forbes 30 under 30 list as a part of this process. My cousin and I were also named to the EY Entrepreneur of the Year finalists. I spoke on big stages, met people I look up to, partnered with NFL teams and NBA teams I grew up watching. I mean, the full spectrum of emotions and journey in these past couple years that I will be telling stories for the rest of my life. And taking a step back in context, you know, when I shared that we were going out of business, both on our Edge social media and my personal eventually, everybody was really surprised, because from the outside looking in, it looked like we were doing really well. It looked like everybody said, "You're crushing it, you're killing it," right? We were working with some of these, you know, people saw the highlights of what I just said. They saw the highlights of our team, our office, our new product launches, the quality of work that we were doing, the people we were working with. So there's a perspective or perception that we're doing really well. And we did very, very well for the time that we did, but we had some fundamental flaws in the business that ended up costing us the business eventually. So first, I'm going to take a step back to, like, how do we get to this point? And I'll be doing more episodes and on the business takeaways as I continue flushing out the postmortem and more on the specifics. That'll be for a different episode. There's obviously some of those are woven through here naturally, and the conversation with Rob and I definitely will touch on a lot of that. But so there's been a ton of business learnings and takeaways and the MBA program that I just went through essentially. But for now, I'm going to focus this episode more so on my personal experience and human experience of navigating these challenges and navigating the tough times. So first, to take a step back, what led to us shutting down? So to paint the picture, 3 years ago when we launched the Edge Tub, there wasn't another product like it. There was just the big fixed wall tubs that were super expensive, and Rob and I worked together to do something that was different, which was we launched the first all-in-one portable tub, meaning that it was the first time, and we worked with the manufacturer to create a tub that had the water pump, the water filtration built in, the cooling, the heating built in, and into one unit that plugged into electric, had one hose in, one hose out to a tub, and have that tub be something that was portable. So we used a drop stitch inflatable technology, and that didn't exist before, which is really cool, because I always reminded Rob, like, we literally pioneered an entire industry because this didn't exist before. And in the nature and how we chose to do it, we were not able to get any patents around us building it, and it would have cost a lot of money and taken a lot of time and been a low likelihood of us actually getting the patent. So we decided to just move forward, and we had mover's advantage in the market because we were the first to do this. But we also knew that it wasn't going to stop other people from coming to market with the same product and knocking it off, which happened, and it happened rapidly. Right away it happened. And our offer was very competitive when we launched. So in 2022, because there was nothing like it, Our value was clear and strong. We were better than the competitors out there. We had a more powerful unit. We had more features. We had portability, so we had more practicality with it, and we also were coming in at a fraction of the price that most of them were. So that's a compelling offer. And so as a result, that first year, we had a hungry audience, and we soared to over $2 million in sales in that first year, and we turned over $500,000 profit, all from an initial investment of less than $100,000, which is really uncommon. And then 2023 is what we referred to, and I like to refer to as the cold rush, where everybody was talking about cold water immersion. It was having its moment in the spotlight, and I saw this coming, which is why I decided to get into this market and saw this as a viable business opportunity. Because after doing my Wim Hof method training and certification and retreat, I saw this moving more mainstream as a tool and as a way of a health and wellness trend and product and way of being. So, and then in 2023, you have everybody talking about it. Joe Rogan's talking about it, Andrew Huberman. It's on mainstream media. And we jumped up in 2023, we jumped up to 11 million in revenue that year. Now, that was when we started to see everybody and their mother come into this industry as well, because if there's a cold rush, then there's cold miners. I know I'm really, really milking this analogy, but when there's a booming industry, now there's going to be more people that are coming in to try to make hay while the sun's shining, so to speak. So 2023 was an explosive year. 2022 was, we only were in business for for half a year. So we launched in really April, end of March, beginning of April is when we launched, and we started doing our pre-sale. And I remember our goal was, if we can sell 50 tubs by the end of the year, we'll be absolutely stoked. And we ended up selling a couple hundred tubs by the end of the year. So we just absolutely far and away exceeded our expectations. And that just showed that we had a product market fit. So now that all sounds great on the surface, right? Going from 2 million in sales in the first several months of your business, then 11 million that next year. But it brought a couple challenges. And specifically, the challenges that it brought was, one, growing pains. We grew very quickly, and that all sounds great, but the way that you need to operate to catch up to a $10 million a year run rate business is completely different than $1 million. The way that you operate that multi-7-figure business is very different than a multi-6 or even 7-figure business. So the infrastructure, the procedures, the team that you need is completely different. So we were forced to step into that right away. And it was challenging to not get over our skis or to get too far extended and to not let things fall through the cracks. So there's this saying in coaching where, in any type of sport that you're doing, where if things are going well, like, you can build bad habits because things are going to carry you forward, and you can build bad habits and get away with it. But if things are not going well, you're forced to really build a strong foundational skill set, and you have to build a good foundational habits. And because things were going well for us, there were certain things that we did not do to build a stronger, and we didn't have the luxury or time to be able to really refine, because we just had to keep up with the demand. We just had to try to keep up to satisfy the demand that was in the market and fulfill customers' orders, because we were running a 10 to 12 week lead time with customers paying in full $5,500 up front. So one of the downsides of growing so quickly was it did give us a false sense of security as well. So it allowed us to slap Band-Aids on wounds that actually needed surgery. So, for example, we had a terrible partnership with our manufacturer. Mega Technology, they're out of China, and they were great in helping us get the first product to market, but the product was not up to the quality standards that we had, and we put too much faith in them to resolve it over time before moving. And we tried to move. There was 4 other manufacturers we were in conversations with, but ultimately we were never able to move before we ended up running out of time and out of business. So we had a terrible partnership with them. They were not willing to stand behind the product as much as they needed to. And so our defect rate was higher than acceptable. And it's normal in a hardware product, especially first generation, when you're doing something new, for it to have a high defect rate. But ours was higher than acceptable. It was 10, 15, even 20% we were seeing at times on certain batches. For example, there was one batch that we, when we produced these in bulk, we produced 200 units that the manufacturer put in a faulty vacuum pump. And every single one of those 200 units, at some point within the first year, we had to have have the customer send back to us or replace so that we could switch out the vacuum pump because the vacuum pump was cracking and leaking. Like, that's a massive issue. And they didn't do much to help us with that. They gave us some sort of cash consideration in terms of discounting for future product, but a good manufacturer would have covered the entire batch of that, or helped us with the shipping costs, or made sure it wasn't going to happen again. But unfortunately, there were things like that kept happening, and we were left to pick up the pieces. And when sales were working well, this wasn't really an issue because we had the cash and we had the ability to just continuously make it right by the customer, ship out a brand new unit, and deal with it later. But really, that covered up the problem. That was just putting a Band-Aid on the problem where there was root cause issues that we needed to solve, and we needed to solve from a better manufacturer. And that was when the high sales started to go away, and when our sales started to go down, that became a real issue and left us exposed. And then it became a little too late. So that was an issue. Another issue was that we were trying to, we decided to swing for the fences. And this isn't really an issue, but this was more of a strategic decision, which was that we built for scale. We built our business from that first year growth that we saw, from going from 2 million in sales to over 10 million in sales. We decided, okay, cool. We know conservatively next year we can do at least the same that we did this year, maybe a couple more. We were shooting for 15 million really. And we built our team to be able to handle that. And we built the infrastructure to be able to handle that. And we did not foresee that our business would actually go down and there would be year-to-year negative growth rate because everything was booming in the industry. And we decided to build for that growth, and we decided to fundraise more money to be able to fuel our growth plans and to swing for the fences. And it wasn't a stretch to think, because if we went from 2 million in year one to 11 million in year two, it wasn't a stretch to think in year three we could do 15. And so that's what we built for. And so we ended up building $1 million payroll, having high overhead, investing deeply into R&D and some other initiatives that were going to take time to pay off. And when sales went down and came in almost 50% under budget at certain months and certain times, that became a critical error, and we couldn't cut or reduce our budget fast enough to be able to solve for that. And this happens in business. And I still live and die, but you live and die by that decision. And I don't regret it, because we swung for the fences, and I'm here to play. I'm here to play big, whistle to whistle, and swing for the fences. And so there's certain lessons that I'm taking with me and how to do that more responsibly next time. But it all the indications led towards even conservative growth, which we planned for, not any reduction in negative growth rate. So the second challenge that we had in terms of overall was hardware. Now, hardware is tough because you have to order a lot of expensive inventory, millions of dollars in advance, and as I mentioned, when you have a first generation hardware product, it's even tougher. And we were working out the kinks of production run to production run, but we didn't have the time to slowly make that happen, because we just had to try to fulfill all the open orders that we had. And hardware is also tough because it's a one-time purchase. So once we converted a customer, that was it. It was a high margin conversion, but not having a repeat purchase made it difficult for sustainability, because every month we're needing to acquire new customers to be able to continue to sustain the business. Whereas other businesses, let's say in the CPG space or food and beverage, you acquire a customer, you put a lot of time and energy and money into acquiring a customer, and yeah, their actual purchase and their margin that you get from that customer on the first purchase is smaller. The lifetime value can be a lot greater over time. But for us, we didn't have that rolling effect. And so the model works for hardware when you have a stable product and you sell it once and you're done with it, like we thought. But our product was one that required a lot of customer support, a lot of hand holding with customers, a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of maintenance, a lot of user error. It was a complex product. It was, you're dealing with hardware, you're dealing with software, you're dealing with water circulation and troubleshooting. I mean, everybody that has a jacuzzi knows that there's issues that happen with a hot tub that you have to get a maintenance guy out there to help with, or there's water chemistry issues. So it's a really high touch product that made it very difficult. And then the third big challenge we faced was saturation of the market. As I mentioned, with the cold rush came the cold miners, and everybody and their mother was launching a cold tub company. And because we couldn't patent the tub or design ourselves, it was being ripped off our website. I mean, it was so funny. Literally, our website was being ripped off pretty much verbatim. And because we were the first to do it and we set the standard, so everybody and their mother started ripping us off. And unfortunately, because we had our manufacturer was not a great manufacturer, every improvement we're making on the unit is now being passed along to our competition. because there's no defensibility. And that's what happens when you work with China in these certain ways with certain manufacturers. There's some really good ones out there, but ours, again, was not a really good one. And so we're making improvements, and we're having to bear the burden and the brunt of making these improvements that then are going to make it that much better for other people down the road. So we did have first movers advantage from a sales standpoint, which is helpful, and that helped us establish our brand. But we had the first movers disadvantage in the sense that we were working out these kinks and helping improve it for competitors down the road. So this was all of 2023. And so it set the stage for the beginning of 2024. The offer became more commoditized, and the race to the bottom from a price point standpoint began. And we were not able to differentiate our product quick enough and convert customers for now 2 times the price of some of the cheaper knockoffs. And our margin structure and business couldn't support dropping the price much lower than we already did. So pretty much all of 2024, we saw this literally in January 2024. It was an uphill battle, and it was refining and cutting the budget to improve our profitability. And we did that. We made massive cuts. We made painful cuts, really hard decisions. We made painful reductions in payroll and eliminated roles and reduced our team and our focus and different initiatives that we wanted to do that we had to pull out of. And we kept, but every single month, as soon, even with the revised forecast and revised sales, we kept coming in lower and lower than forecasted. And 2024, we became a $7 million year for us on a budget that was built for $15 million. In other words, the math ain't mathin', and that just doesn't work. It doesn't work when you don't have tens of millions of dollars of funding or VC funding to be able to fund those losses, because we were profitable initially. We didn't raise a ton of money. We were not built for that type of model. So a lot of businesses are built for that, but our business was not built for that type of model. So it doesn't work, and you become really tight for cash, and you become in a cash crunch position. So it all came to a head at the end of August and in September, when we had come out of what was supposed to be the best season of our business. Summertime, it's really hot. Most of the country is sweltering hot. So buying a cold tub is a great purchase. In the wintertime, it's a little bit tougher to sell cold tubs. It's like selling ice to Eskimos, right? When half the country is frozen, it's a lot harder to convince someone that they need to spend $5,000 to buy an ice bath when the water outside is very, very cold. And this we knew there was some seasonality to our business. So when we came out of the summer season and we still were not able to get back to break even, we knew that we were in trouble, because we were trying everything in the winter of 2024, in the spring, to get ourselves to break even so that we could build up our cash reserves in the summer. And when that didn't happen, we knew it painted a grim picture for the future. So what we did then was we tried fundraising some more, and we continued to try to cut our costs. And we tried fundraising some more. We had an opportunity that was very, very close to coming through, but ultimately did not. I can't speak about that publicly just yet, but I will be able to at some point in the future. But it was an absolutely wild, epic part of the story where we were very close to getting a fundraising deal to come through in quite a tremendous fashion. But we ultimately were not able to, and the investors were out. So we after that point, we got back on with our board, and basically the next best move was to really pursue a merger or acquisition, because we knew that we were going to run out of cash. So the thought was, if we could merge with another cold immersion brand out there, we could combine core competencies, we could share cost cutting and improve our situation, and be able to have the Edge brand lived on, or sell the assets of the brand to another company that wanted to acquire us for certain marketing initiatives or the infrastructure that we had. And we tried, and we had some great conversations. We were close on a couple different companies that we thought there could be a M&A scenario, but down to the 11th hour, we were exploring these different investment, merger, and acquisition scenarios, but they all ended up falling through, unfortunately. So we did everything we could to try to keep the Edge brand even. And a lot of people asked, well, was there a way you could just keep the Edge brand? Because we built a lot of brand equity. I mean, I poured my personal heart, soul into the Edge brand. It's something that was so aligned with who I am as a person. But unfortunately, if we could have stopped selling cold tubs and started selling something else, of course. But in order to do that, we would still need to honor the warranties of the products that we sold out there. And this became one of our biggest liabilities, is that every single month we were spending about $60,000 to $80,000 a month just on supporting our warranty. So that's a massive anchor that you're dragging, a $1 million a year anchor that you're dragging, that's just absolutely destroying your profitability and crushing your overhead to just maintain supporting our current product and market, and to make right by the customers, which was our commitment from day one, to do the best that we could to make sure that our customers had using tubs. And we were never just trying to make a quick buck or make a sale and move on, even though some people perceived it that. That's theirs to do, but we always made right by the customer as best as we could, and so that cost us a lot of money, as you could see, $80,000 a month, and so even if we stopped selling cold tubs and we started selling other things, we would need to cover that burn of $80,000 a month on top of the normal operating expenses. So we would instantly need to start bringing in a couple $1 million a year just to cover the burn, and there was nothing that we had to be able to sell right away that could have done that. So with hundreds of thousands of dollars owed to creditors and vendors and not enough cash to buy more inventory, a few unexpected bills, some sales tax bills that came through as well, we were barely able to make payroll. We were down to like 60 grand in our bank account, and then had a $30,000 payroll coming through that next day, that next Monday. And Rob and I looked at each other after looking it through with the board, and we realized we've reached the end of the road here. So that's we talked with our board. We came to the unanimous decision for the unanimous board approval for dissolution. So our plan then became to liquidate our remaining inventory, to pay back as much of the debt as we could, our secured creditor, and wind up operations. So we made the announcement on October 31st of 2024, and then November and December we're dealing with the cleanup and the aftermath and the fallout, which is really where shit hit the fan, so to speak. And yeah, that's what happened. Okay, so there's the context. I tried to make that as brief as possible. There's so many different tangents and rabbit holes to go, but that first part of this episode here is just about the context into what happened. So hopefully now you have a bit of a better idea. And also this is for me to share with my friends and people that want to know what happened, because as you can see, it's complex. It just took me 20 minutes to explain what actually happened in the most brief way, but deepest way possible. Otherwise, the high levels just, we ran into some expensive, complex challenges and manufacturing issues, and we ran out of cash and we ran out of time to make anything happen. That's the skinny of it. So now shifting into key challenges and my take to the key challenges that presented itself and the takeaways that we had. So there's 6 of them here, and I'm going to just high level the 6 of them. So number 1, chunk it down. Number 2, doing the right thing is not easy, but it's always worthwhile. Number 3, learning how to deal with criticism and blame. Number 4, keep 2 feet in motion and keep 2 eyes on God. And number 5, perspective on failing. Number 6, the price of growth. So that's what I'm going to dive into here and talk a little about and share a little about some of these challenges and takeaways at every turn. So first, chunk it down. So once we made the decision, we had a lot of uncertainty surrounding us. There was a lot of tough things that we would have to navigate. We would have to tell our board of directors, we'd have to tell our investors that we lost their money, some of which were some of my closest friends and even family. We'd have to tell our secured creditor that we had a line of credit with, that we couldn't pay them back fully, that we had liens on our assets and inventory and guarantees on. We'd have to tell dozens of other vendors who we owed money to that we couldn't pay them back. We'd have to tell affiliates that we owed commissions to that we couldn't pay them. We'd have to lay off our team, some of our closest friends. We'd have to figure out our credit card debt, which Rob and I were personally guaranteed and responsible for. We'd have to figure out how to get out of our office lease, which we had another year on, which was another $60,000 that Rob and I were personally responsible for. We would have to find a way to not leave our customers high and dry. So once we're not there to support them, that they don't just have a junk of metal that's sitting in their garage. I had to find a way to get out of my apartment lease, because knowing that now we weren't going to be able to pay ourselves, I couldn't, it wasn't a prudent decision for me to continue to spend the money that I was spending in my apartment lease. And I had to look at my personal finances to cut my personal burn rate, like all this happening at once, right? So this is a massive, massive challenge and undertaking, overwhelming. So our mantra became, there's a limited number of tough decisions and conversations we have left to make. Let's just make one at a time. Chunk it down. Focus on the one thing that's present in front of us. Embrace it. Focus on it. Knock it down, and then move on to the next. And sure enough, one by one, we knocked them down. And as I'm sitting here today at the end of the year, they have all been knocked down. Thank God. So It's wild, but I think this is, in one sense, it became easy once we finally came to that decision, because for the months leading up to it, when this was a possibility and we were doing everything to not come to this decision to close down Edge, it was difficult to operate in this limbo phase because these were hanging over us, but we were also having to make decisions to keep the business going. And it was a bit of a limbo phase. So as soon as we had to actually make the decision to pull the plug, then there was some relief in that right away, because it was like, okay, well, now there's an end in sight and we're going to figure it out. And one thing that I've learned as an entrepreneur is you have to trust your resolve to figure it out. And I've learned this just as a human that's navigated a lot of adversity and challenges, is that, and I want to offer this to you, is trust your resolve to figure it out. Whatever big obstacle you have in front of you, no matter how overwhelming, uncertain, hairy, scary it feels, you trust your resolve to figure it out. You will figure it out. You have the ability to figure out. Just chunk it down, take it one step at a time, focus on the one big boulder that's in front of you and move that. So that was the mantra. And sometimes you're just going to have to, at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to make it to the end of the day. Embrace it as embracing each moment. So this was really important focus and important reminder of chunking it down. And literally sometimes it was just like, I just got to get through to lunchtime, because I got this morning where we've got, this board conversation, or I've got the investor call, or this afternoon we have to lay off a team member or work out this conversation or figure out what we're going to do here. It was like, sometimes it was literally just make it to the next meal. And then it became make it to the end of the day. And then it became make it to the end of the week. And so it started getting better and better. And an important reminder in facing this as well was that my life is not in danger. Thank God. Yes, the stakes are high. Like, yes, they're high. We're talking about, Rob and I were both looking down and staring down the barrel of potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt personally. And at stake, my reputation at stake, other people's income and livelihood, high stakes. Yes, but not life or death. And that's one thing this practice taught me. I'm not at war right now. I have some friends and family right now in Israel that are literally at war, and that are their lives are literally in danger every single day. And I have to remind myself, I'm very grateful that as hairy as the situation has been for me and challenging, it's not life or death. And I think it's important to remember too, for whatever challenge that you are facing right now, ask yourself, is it life or death? Because in most cases, thank God, it is not life or death. And the key takeaway from chunking it down as well is that, when it's overwhelming and we see what's in front of us, there's the feeling that it's all gonna, we get fixated on worst case scenario. That's where our mind goes. It instantly goes to worst case scenario. Oh, this person's gonna say this, or person's gonna do this, or how's this person gonna respond to this way? And 9 out of 10 times, it went better than expected. 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 conversations went as good as they could have. And I would leave that conversation, Rob, and I would be like, well, that went about as good as it could have given the situation, given what could have been. 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 conversations went that way. 9 out of 10 responses were overwhelmingly positive. Now, it was probably about 90%, maybe 85, maybe 8.5 out of 10, but 85%. There was 15%, 10 to 15% that was bad. It went really horribly. It was bad. There was no two ways about it. It was brutal. But 9 out of 10, the still a vast majority went better than expected. And that's a really helpful reminder that I'm taking with me into whatever comes next, whatever challenges are next, is that it's going to work out better than you think. And I now have so much evidence to show that when I'm facing the tidal wave in front of me, I know now that no matter where my mind goes to for worst case scenario, it will turn out better than I'm expecting it, because I'm naturally going to be fixated on worst case scenario. So that's the first challenge and takeaway of chunk it down. Now, moving on to the next one, which is number 2, doing the right thing is not easy, but it is worthwhile. I've learned that when you're willing to have the hard conversation in life gets a lot easier. There was so many tough conversations that we had with our creditor, with our investor, with our team. But when you lead with transparency, authenticity, when you're not hiding anything, people are generally amenable and willing to work with you, because everybody can understand situations that aren't great situations and that things don't work out the way that you expect. And despite your best intentions, they still cannot work out that way. And I found that when I was willing to be honest and admit that and own that and take ownership of that and lead with that, people were so much more amenable and so much more willing to want to be solution oriented and be understanding and be solution and work towards a solution. And that's really what happened again 9 out of 10 times. So making the tough decisions, like I said this a lot with Rob, is like it would have been a lot easier not to care, to just shut down our website and just like, we're out of business, that's it, sorry. And that would have been a lot easier. And a lot of companies we've saw in our industry in particular did that, and it left their customers high and dry. And it would have been a lot easier to do that, but that was never even in the cards, because this was an honest man's pillow is his peace of mind. And I wanted to act from a perspective that I could look back and be proud of the way that I showed up, and know that even though there was some situations that I still feel badly about, that I still feel guilty about, that I still feel shitty about, that I know that I did the best that I could with what I had, and I can sleep well at night because of that. And that was my North Star. And that framework and that North Star made all the decisions a lot easier, because you now know what your rubric is for making these decisions. But it made it a lot harder, to be honest with you. One example is that as soon as we knew we were going out of business, we decided to stop selling a warranty with our product, like as soon as we knew, because we didn't want to mislead people, and we didn't want people to purchase thinking that we would be around. So what we did is we changed the messaging on our website to inventory blowout sale, and we dropped the price significantly, and we sold it without a warranty. And we made it very clear that we had the customer check 2 boxes before purchasing, saying, I understand that there's no warranty with this product. If something goes wrong or it needs a repair, I am liable and responsible for paying for that. And we made it very, very clear. It would have been a lot easier, and we would have sold more. We would have probably saved ourselves a lot of debt and covering a lot more debt of selling the product without telling customers, but it would not have been right to sell it without a warranty. And so that's one example where it would have been a lot easier, and it would have been a lot more in our own self-interest and some other people's self-interest to do it that way. But I wouldn't have felt right about selling to customers at the end of the day without being upfront and transparent. So it's never easy, but it's always worthwhile. And you really get to see people's character when shit hits the fan. Like you get to discover your own character when you reach challenges. You get to see how people react when they are in the heat of battle. You really get to see who people are. And time and time again in our team, I was blown away. I was humbled. I was moved with just how our team showed up and responded, and all of our partners. And I took it as an opportunity to lead by example as well, of, okay, this is a tough situation, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to define myself and to be the leader, and to show the character and the heart of how I want other people to show up and how I want to lead the world. So that was a very helpful perspective throughout this whole time. So that was number 2. Doing the right thing is not always easy, but it certainly is worthwhile. Number 3, dealing with criticism and blame. So naturally, I knew that there was going to be a tremendous amount of criticism, of blame, of pushback, of negative response to closing down the business from customers, from in particular, and from other people that would be very upset at us. And this, I knew for myself personally, I put myself face forward on this brand. I was the face of the brand. I was in all the ads, and it's nice when things were going well, when people would recognize me for, oh, you're the cold tub guy. Oh, I've seen you on my ads. That's fun when things are going well, but then you also take the fall when things are not going well. And I sold this thing. I sold this thing for myself. I believed in it. I believed that the product was going to get better, and that we were standing behind it, which we did, and that we would be here for the long term. I genuinely thought that, and I sold the product believing that. Now, we got some serious hate mail to the point where I had to get off Instagram, and I had to block a handful of people. And I got LinkedIn messages, I got emails, I got text messages from some people that somehow got my number. It was a full-on onslaught. So I took a digital detox for a month once we put the notice up there, because I knew that there was going to be a lot of negativity coming through. And this was really tough. This was one of the tougher parts for me, because of how much I truly care. And this was new for me. Like, I'd never gotten hate mail before. So let me read you a message just so you can get an idea of some of the messages that were coming through and I was dealing with. So this message came through. It was an email. I don't know how this guy got my email. And he messaged me too on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And he said, the subject line is, "You're a fraud." So let me get this straight. You sold a product knowing you were going out of business and now no longer provide the service for that product. Literally, you can still find on the internet the user guide that you sold a 1-year warranty. You are a fraud, professing all eyes on God. That all eyes on God was the link in my the bio on my Instagram. So he says, professing all eyes on God. You ask him to bless you with the ability to defraud people, you spineless weasel. It's people like you that give God a bad name. Be a man and give people their money back. I will personally make sure that any endeavor you try and get into, that your audience will know the character of who they're dealing with. Gotta shake that one off, right? So yeah, you can imagine that doesn't feel good when you receive that on in your inbox on a Tuesday morning, right? And there was many messages like that. He didn't use very colorful messages. A lot of people sending multiple messages and straight up saying "fuck you." So that's fun, but one of the things that I struggled with early on was like, how do I handle this? Like, do I respond to that person? Do I try to explain to him like, we sold this without a warranty and, we're doing our best to try to make it right. And shout out to my mentor, Giorgio, who helped me work through this. Cause instantly, when something like that happens, got to, I needed to talk to someone of like, how do I handle this? And my big takeaway in learning from this is that other people's perception of me is not my responsibility. And although I wanted to respond and explain myself, I knew that it would only fan the flame and fuel the fire, and also know that for this guy who sent this message, that I have his attention and that he has my attention, and that he's getting to me, and that would just fuel the fire. And it would take so much work to try to change someone's perspective about me, like this guy who called me a spineless weasel. Like, think about all the work that I would need to do to try to change his mind about me. And for what? Like, I don't care what he thinks about me when I know it not to be true, because the true, again, 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 people, when I posted the message that we're going out of business, I had over 150 probably messages from friends and family and people that partners, reaching out and sharing like their words of support and how proud of them they were of me, and how grateful they were, and how they believe in me, and how not to get myself down. So the vast majority, and those are the people that really know me, that know that like I put myself on the line for this, and I led it with as much integrity as I possibly could have. So for the people that don't understand that or get that or don't know me personally, and these are all people that I don't know personally, like I'm not going to, like, what's the point in trying to change their mind? So, and then Chad said to me, he's like, I'm jealous, man. You got haters. That means you're doing something, which is true as well. And one of the mantras I kept this on my phone background for a while through this time period as well is it's the Theodore Roosevelt "Man in the Arena" quote. And I'm going to share this with you. It's a beautiful quote. He says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." Whew, that's a big one. I need a sip of water after that one. Really, really good. It's about being the man in the arena. And I kept reminding myself every day, I am the man in the arena. It's easy for people to say and share judgment on the outside, but I was in the arena, covered with dust and sweat and blood, taking the shot and fighting the fight. So that was really helpful in dealing with this as well. Another perspective that a friend of mine shared with me is when someone reaches out to you, which is and they're upset, ask yourself, what if God were also in this person? How would you respond? And I love that because it's true. One of my favorite quotes from Ram Dass is, we're all just walking each other home at the end of the day. So this person that sent me that note, like, it's triggering me. Okay. And that means that there's something here for me to learn. So like, yes, let me sit with this. Let me feel that. That feels really shitty. Okay. Now, what is the perspective? What is the learning that I can take from this? And how can I share this with other people? And this is what I'm doing in real time. So what if God were also in this person? Because God is in that person. And that means that there's something for me to learn in this. And how would I respond with more compassion, knowing if I had to respond? In this case, I don't have to respond, but if I had to respond, how would I respond knowing that God is also in this person? And that just leads me to respond and to act with such more compassion. I think about this guy that sent that message, like, truthfully, how miserable must he be, and how crappy of a situation in his life must he be to take that much time out of his day to go figure out and find my contact information, and to send me that note, and to write that note, and send me that note, and to say that I'm going to make it my job to ruin anything you do in the future, and any endeavor you do, I'm going to bring you down. Like, to devote his life to negatively try to bring me down. Like, oh, like I truly, like, I feel like how pathetic that must be, and how sad that must be, truthfully, for his life, how miserable his life must be if that's what he wants to dedicate his life towards. So there is a sense of compassion I feel towards that. And that's a big thing. Yeshua, or Jesus, was telling us. How can you love your enemies? How can you find compassion in your heart for your enemies? It's a very difficult thing to do. But every something that Giorgio always said to me all the time as well is, take no credit, take no blame, stay focused on your chief aim. And this was really helpful dealing with the criticism and blame. It wasn't as bad as it certainly could have been for me, because I was focused on this throughout the entire time, and on all the whole way up, I was focused on grounding myself and centering myself and not getting too high with things. And I credit a lot of my work with my mentor Giorgio and other people, and just in the past, having learned this lesson as well, had on the rise up to, all these accolades and connections and millions of dollars of success. I could have easily let it get to my head and taken credit for it and been way more like, yeah, look what I'm doing. Look at me. I'm doing this. And had I let myself feel that high and exposed myself to that high, then I would have exposed myself to way stronger of a crash on this come down here at the end, where it truly was not that bad. It was, the worst part was dealing with some of those messages like this, but it wasn't this massive ego death spiral that I otherwise could have experienced. I think most people would have. So I'm grateful for that, to be able to stay grounded on the way up, which made the come down that much better. So that's number 3. Onward to number 4, which is keep 2 feet in motion and 2 eyes on God. Oh, this is so good. So every single day I talked with Chad on the phone, and we would talk, and we would just keep each other up. We would keep each other high on the perspective. We would keep each other focused on God. We would keep each other focused on controlling the controllables and leave the rest up to him. That's what surrender means to me. It means control what's in your control, and then surrender the rest up to God, the universe, the flow of life, whatever you want to call it, that ultimately has a higher perspective that we can't see, because there's certain things that are just out of our control. And if I try to stress myself on those things that I can't control, it's going to be trying to swim upstream, and you're going to have a bad time. So I've learned this through sales. I've learned this through business. Absolutely. And certainly in this come down, I kept saying, keep 2 eyes on God. And operating in uncertainty is hard. It's exhausting, especially because it can go so many different ways. So I just place my full trust in God. God don't make no mistakes. He never made a mistake for me yet in my life. So I just practice on putting my full trust. And this is what I mean by 2 eyes on God, not just 1 eye on God and like, oh yeah, I believe it's going to work out, even though I can't see, but 2 eyes on God. Uncommon faith. This was a deepening of faith. How can I have uncommon faith through this? That what's meant for me cannot miss me. And God, please lead me where I'm needed most. And I will follow your lead. I will do my part. I will show up. I will put in the work, and I will surrender the rest to you. And I had to put my full faith into this, and I had to put my money where my mouth was with this. And it was a beautiful shift that happened. And this has deepened my relationship and my trust and my perception and perspective with God in ways that I didn't think were possible, which is a beautiful thing. So this was a huge shift. It was a shift from going from thinking to really knowing that God's got my back here, and to knowing that with every fiber in my being. Because I believe that what I'm going through now is preparing me for what I've already asked for. It's expanding my capacity to handle difficult situations, and to deal with difficult problems, and to be a more experienced human being. And that was a big prayer is, God, please lead me to where I'm needed most. Whatever form that takes, I surrender to. I'm going to be focused on the function over the form. I know what I'm here to do. I want to help people. I know why I'm here to exist. And I want to just focus on that. And as much as I want to be attached to the form that it takes, because Edge Theory Labs and selling these tubs and building this team was so amazing. And I love that form. I'm going to focus on surrendering that form to you, because you have other ideas and what forms may be even better than I can't even imagine. It's thy will. May thy will be done. It's thy will, not my will. And we're in a relationship and we both have our roles and parts to play. So please allow me the discernment to, and the wisdom to not try to do more than my part, but to delegate the heavy lifting to you. Whew, yeah. 2 feet in motion, 2 eyes on God. And sometimes the other thing I learned is sometimes God brings you your biggest fears to show you at the end of the day that you had nothing to be afraid of all along. And that's, I feel like, been such a case with this closure process. Is this was my biggest fear. Not hitting the sales targets we needed, these issues becoming fatal, and we had to shut down the business, and I had to let go of my team, and we had to tell the investors we lost all their money. It's like, and I was in debt. It's like, that was the biggest fear. And the biggest fear came to reality. And here I am on December 31st at the end of the year, and it is behind me. And I made it through, and I'm stronger and better and a more resilient and more experienced being because of that. And for that, I'm grateful, because the biggest fear came to me. And yes, it brought me damn close to my breaking point. It brought me down to my knees. It pushed me, but I'm still standing better than I ever was. Shout out to Elton John on that one. I'm still standing. I really am. And yes, I bent, but it did not break me. And that's such a beautiful thing, because there's now a deeper sense, a relationship I have with myself, a deeper sense of resilience and strength and respect and admiration that I have for the way that I show up, and trust for how I will take this into the future, because I know that the problems that I'm dealing with now, I couldn't have dealt with 3 years ago. And the problems I'll deal with in 3 years, I can only deal with because I've dealt with this. So it's preparing me for the next stage. So that's the big takeaway around 2 feet in motion and 2 eyes on God. Now, the next shift and the next takeaway, let me have a little sip of my coffee here before we go on. All right. So, number 5, the perspective on failing. Winston Churchill says, success is going from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Absolutely true. One thing I've learned is your business can fail, but that doesn't make you a failure. Like anything in life, it's how you define it. So our business, like our Edge Theory Labs, objectively failed. We had to close down. We were no longer able to keep running the business and keep creating value for our shareholders. But in a bigger sense, we succeeded. And what I mean by this is that when I think back towards, like, it's really painful thinking of like, oh, like we were so close, we had it and we had to shut down, we failed, like that sucks. But if I think back to why we started this because we wanted to help people. I wanted to work on a project with my cousin. Like I wanted to start a business, and I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow, and I wanted to share I wanted to share a tool that had transformed my life, which was cold water immersion, with thousands of people. If I was lucky, I wanted to share it with as many people as I could. And at the end of the day, over the last 3 years, I did just that. Shared this with thousands of people. Rob and I were doing the math. There's probably 100,000 people that had gotten to an edge tub at the end of the day, based on the thousands of 5,000 people that had edge tubs and the different events that we did, the different facilities that had people going through 100 people a day. We did some rough math, and it was between 50 and 100,000 people that touched this product. Like that's a full football stadium full of people that have interacted with the product that we created, and were forced to connect more deeply with their body and feel better and more alive as a result of it. And the testimonials we got of some of the people that, we're talking about hundreds and literally thousands of people who said that their life was changed because of this. How incredible is that? Like, is that not a success? How could I ever dictate that as a failure? That is an absolute success. And that's just beautiful. And then being able to build out the team and impact the 15 people that were able to live their life and provide for their families because of this for the time period that they did. Like, that's a blessing. That's a success. So perhaps one of the biggest shifts here was shifting my lens in terms of how we played this game. So if the objective was for Edge to be a, 50 million, $100 million brand, which I saw we were really not that far off from, and I saw so clearly and I saw the potential of. But if that was the objective, we failed, and it was really tough. And that's what was like really hard to move through when we were first shutting down, was like, dang, this sucks. But then by that measure, we failed, and this hurt the most. It felt like we were so close. But then one day, as I was journaling and I was sitting with it, it came to me. What if I let that idea go? That was very upstream. What if actually I allowed God to lead me? What if Edge wasn't supposed to be this $100 million brand? What if Edge was supposed to be a teacher, an MBA program, a course, a higher education that would come into my life and in 3 years give me the crash course and give me the full spectrum of emotion, of personal growth, of business growth, to see the full upside of learning how to find a product market fit, build a brand, hire a team, fundraise $1 million, and then shut it all down, and then wind it down and learn how to go through the failure process to build the foundation and the relationships that I needed. Then by all measures, this was a smashing success. And I truly do view that is what Edge was here to do. And as soon as I started to see because, Edge, it feels like your baby of sorts, right? It's alive. It has this energy, and the energy was like, we failed. Like, we have to kill this thing now. We have to shut it down. And we couldn't give it what its fullest expression was meant to be, which was this massive business. And once that shifted to the fullest expression, it did its job. It really did its job. Then I began to feel a sense of completion, and that helped me really provide closure for this whole experience. And that shift is a full transmutation of energy. It's transmuting the things that make us feel contracting and into something that feels expansive. And that's something really important to do throughout. And you can't just think your way through it. You have to feel your way through it, because I couldn't just logically, if I just got stuck and fixated on toxic positively, trying to be like, it's okay, this was just meant to be here for my growth and learning, and it's okay, that would be doing myself a disservice. But I had to really sit with this all and feel it all to then have that perspective be unveiled, because otherwise it wouldn't have landed or resonated with me. It wasn't until I actually had to fully feel and work my way through the emotional charges of all this that perspective revealed itself. And that's true healing. And that's something that you can do. And I offer for all of you to do as well, is to feel your way, to sit in the ickiness and the uncomfortability, and sit in there and feel your way through it fully in those emotions until that higher perspective and that lighter energy comes through, because it always does. And there's always another perspective. So that's number 5. Number 6, finally, we've arrived at number 6, the final shift and takeaway, which is the price of growth. Listen, we all want to be experienced beings. We all want to be veterans. We all want to have experience, but we don't want to go through the life experiences that make us experienced. It's so funny, but it's so true. Like I don't want, it's like, I don't get mad at my trainer for giving me exercises that I don't want to do that are the most challenging. That happens every time I work out with my trainer. It's like, dang, this one sucks. I hate this one, but I also know this one's the best one for me. And that's also why I'm paying him to be in my corner, to give me the ones that I hate, because that's what's required for my growth. So I don't get mad at him. I'm like, dude, what the hell? Like, why are you giving me these extras? It's like, that's why he's here. And that's what life brings us, these experiences. It brings us these experiences for us to grow, for us to become more experienced. So why would I be mad at God and life for doing the same thing? So embrace it all. So through the growth process and through becoming a more experienced, more skillful human being, one of my big takeaways is just got to embrace it. Like cold water immersion taught me how to breathe through the discomfort, how to embrace it, not to brace and try to white knuckle my way and shallow breathe my way through it, but to shift into okay. Embrace it, feel it, into a down-regulated, nasal breathing, open-hearted, relaxed, deepening embrace of the discomfort of the stimulus. Yeah, that feels good. So by the end of it, and this price of growth, by the end of it, I got really good at having difficult conversations, the kind of grab your balls kind of conversation. Excuse me for the very crude analogy, but that's really what it was, and how many of those conversations there were, where in the first couple ones were so difficult. And then by the end, it was like I got really good at just making difficult decisions and having tough conversations and communicating that with people, which like I'm so grateful because I now have such an easier time being able to say the difficult thing or to have a tough conversation with someone before, when I was a little bit more conflict avoidant. And now I can actually have those conversations a lot easier. And that's a gift. Like I now have that as a skill set. And the only way I could have developed that, you can't shortcut that skill set. The only way I could have developed that skill set, which was by practicing it and doing it. The only way that I was able to get good, and the only way you can get good at having difficult conversations, is by having difficult conversations. You need to take those reps. And so now I'm way more skilled and I'm way better at having difficult conversations. And the only way I could have done that was by going through and taking those reps. So in hindsight now, as I've gone through that, I'm very grateful that that's a skill I've developed by practice. And that's not a skill you can just shortcut. You can't build skills without doing that. As some of the sayings go, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor. A couple other lines I love that I wanted to share. Albert Einstein, adversity introduces a man to himself. Robert Jordan says, the oak fought the wind and was broken. The willow bent when it must and survived. That's good. Arnold Schwarzenegger, this is a good one. He says, strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength. The Governator hit us with that great one. Wow, let me read that one more time. Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength. Oh, that's so good. That is the price of growth. And that is where true strength comes from. It doesn't come from just things going well and winning. It comes from your struggles. That's what develops you. And one of the things that Chad and I said, and I talked a lot with people in my circle, is this is the point where the audience is at the edge of their seat. This is the struggle, the tribulation, the trials, the tests. Like, this is why we go to the movies. This is why we tune into the story. This is the really good part. And that was a perspective I kept close to me when things were really, really ugly. And it was like, how are we going to get out of this one? And I'm still in that mindset right now on a lot of things, which is like, the audience is at the edge of their seat. What's he going to do next? It's like, I love The Office. I'm a big Office super fan. And the conflict of Jim and Pam, will they, won't they, they're on different pages, they just miss each other. Like, we need that conflict. If they just like got together right away, we don't keep watching. We keep watching because of the rub, because of the conflict, because of the struggles of one of them loving the other one when the other one doesn't, or the other one's with someone. It's like, that's what we watch. And that's when we get to see who they really are as characters. That's how we get to know the characters. So that's how we get to know our character, through facing these struggles. So that's the price of growth. That's number 6. All right. That's a lot right there. I just hit you with, and I want to wrap this up here by sharing the $1 million question, which I'm sure a lot of you are curious about, which is, what am I going to do next? That's like, it's funny, but I think many of you can relate to different phases or chapters in your life. You get asked certain questions all the time. So like in high school, when you're a senior, what are you doing next year? Where are you going to go to college? What are you going to study? And college, what are you studying? What are you going to major in? At the end of college, what are you going to do? What jobs are you applying to? Right. And then they kind of peter down, or then you get in relationships and it's, oh, when are you going to propose? And then it's, when are you going to get engaged? When are you going to get married? When's the wedding date going to be? When are you going to have kids? Right? There's always these questions that people are asking at different chapters and phases. And it's been funny, but I just keep getting asked the question, and you know, I don't mind it by any means, but I keep getting asked the question, well, what are you going to do next? And that is $1 million question. So my life is totally flipped upside down right now. You know, I have gotten out of my apartment, literally, like, think about it today, right now. Thankfully I have the ability to go back and crash with my parents, and my brother's back living with my parents as well. And so there was enough space. We moved out a little piece of furniture in the room, and I put my mattress on the floor in my brother's room. So I'm sharing a room with my brother back in my parents' house, which is definitely an adjustment coming from living in my own really nice 1-bedroom apartment that I had in my own building, my own space, and the amenities and co-working, and then going into an office that I had every day. I had my own office set up and podcast set up, and I had all this set up, and now it's like full life 360, life flipped upside down. We're out of the office. I'm out of my apartment. So one perspective I can look at is this sucks. My business failed. I bet my life savings on this business. Now that's gone. I lost my job. I lost my apartment. I lost my office, my home. I had to move out of my apartment that I loved and back into my parents' house at 30 years old, sharing a room with my brother. Like, that's the state of where I'm at right now. Like, yeah, that sucks. And that's definitely one way to look at it. Another perspective, and this is a perspective that I choose to look at it, which is my business failed and I learned a lot. I invested my life savings into this and I received the greatest return on investment from that savings and from those tens of thousands of dollars that I invested into the business from what we did. The greatest return on investment I could have ever gotten from the learnings that I got, from the connections that I made, from the network that I built, from the memories that I had, from the learning that I had. Like, it was way more valuable than any education or any boot camp or MBA program, or if I just wanted to go to business school, which is something I was considering before starting Edge, I would have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. I got to spend a fraction of that and got way more in return, and actually got to live my life based off of that as well. And it funded my lifestyle for 3 years. So, like, fantastic. And I also have the luxury of being able to move back in with a family who I love, a parents who I have a great relationship with, a brother who I fucking love my brother. We have fun spending time together. It's definitely, although it's an adjustment living in the same room, and it's not very conducive for a dating life and for finding a serious relationship, but it's a good pit stop for the time being with some travel that I have coming up to allow myself to build more of a buffer before moving back out. So I have that luxury, and I also have the time now. And although my business failed and I lost my job, like, now I have time to be able to put energy towards doing things like recording this podcast and focusing on honing in my personal brand and doing the things that light me up, and to writing more and to sharing more of these stories. So that's something I'm really excited for. And shout out to Joe, another mentor of mine, who said, take this time slow and savor this time. Don't rush into something right away. Because instantly it was like, right as soon as, even as Edge was shutting in the beginning process, shutting down, all these opportunities came to me. And I was like, oh, as my time started opening back up, I'm like, okay, like, how am I going to fill my time back up? Because now all of a sudden there's time freeing up. It's a little uncomfortable. And there's no shortage of things to jump into. And I'm a manifesting generator. I'm a go guy. And so I'm like, all right, time to jump into something. And and so my mentor, Joe from Trilogy, was like, take a beat. And I was like, thank you. That's a good reminder. So I'm like really making it a focus for me in this next few months. I have travel coming up. I'm gonna be gone for 6 or 7 weeks. I'm gonna be gone for traveling in Iceland, leading a couple retreats, and then out to Nepal, to the Himalayas, to trek up to Everest Base Camp, and a little travel through Europe in between. So I have a lot of travel coming up. So from now until then, I'm just really taking my time to focus on really just catching my breath, challenge shifting a bit from this past 3-year sprint, and focusing on a couple different things that I feel really excited about in the new year. And so a couple of those intentions for myself are, one, facilitating more experiences and building community. So doing events, doing retreats, doing workshops, building this community in real life and virtually. So that's one thing I feel very excited about and is a big intention for myself in 2025. Number 2, telling more stories, learning and connecting with others. I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that getting the podcast back up and ripping is something I feel very excited about and a huge intention for myself. And writing more, interviewing guests. And number 3 is helping people solve complex problems that I care about. And this takes the form of some private coaching that I'm opening myself back up to doing that I was doing before, some consulting, and certain projects that I really care about. So that's what's next for me, is really focusing on those things that I've enjoyed doing and want to continue to do. And that's where I'm at. So I'm going to take a deep breath. I hope you can as well after listening to this, if you're still here with me after the long download. But I felt like it was only right and only important to take the time to really thoroughly give this reflection give this a reflection for myself and to share it with you, as I look forward to sharing many, 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 many more insights, perspectives, and takeaways through this Edge experience and for the experiences to come, because that's what I'm here to do. So, couple things in wrapping from call to action standpoint. The links are in the show notes for this, but I have just started a Find the Others free WhatsApp community. This is for the others out there. If you're listening to this, you are one of the others that want to play at a higher level in life and that are striving for greatness. And the striving for greatness can be a lonely pursuit. It's an individual pursuit, but it doesn't have to be lonely. We don't have to do it alone. Iron does sharpen iron. And this WhatsApp community is a place where I will be sharing daily inspiration, resources to just stay plugged into those good vibes, to stay plugged into feeding your soul and feeding yourself with inspiration to keep you motivated along the journey, to keep yourself learning and growing and connecting with other people that are doing the same thing. So we're just getting started. We already got a couple dozen people in the group and people from all over the world. It's pretty cool. We just had someone from London join, and Germany and Portugal and all across the US. So link is in there to join and to request to join, and you can share that with other people as well. So that's the Find the Others community. And then on January 12th, I am leading a workshop called the Momentum Experience with my dear friend Christina Rice. We are doing a one-of-a-kind experience. It's just going to be a blast off. We're almost sold out of the tickets. We might be by the time this airs, but if we're not, go ahead and check out from my links in the show notes. You can check out the link to more about that event and book your spot. If we have any tickets available, it's going to be an absolutely kick-ass event and way to start the new year. So that is all I got for you all today. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you in this journey. I can't wait for what's to come for both of us, all of us in 2025. Jump into that WhatsApp group chat and let's keep the conversation going. And until next time, yours truly, have a great day. Let's get it. Happy New Year.